In 2009, an amateur video artist studying in the UK uploaded a video onto YouTube and other sites of a recent piece he did. After many reports and complaints, the video was removed from many sites. The piece allegedly begins with a shot of a foggy green field, some saying located in Ireland. Only sound that can be heard is a light hissing and some muffled speaking. The camera slowly starts zooming in on a white spot in the shot. After several tedious minutes, people describe a scene of involving an albino deer. A close-up shot of her eyes suddenly appear to viewers, showing some sort of infection or sign of blindness with them. The following shot then shows the deer staring at a vanity mirror for about a minute. After this, things start to become stranger. The deer in the reflection starts moving in dissonance with the real one. Zooming in, the camera focuses on the deer in the reflection, showing it move about it in a frightening manner. People have often described the movements as unnatural and physically grotesque, as though someone was molding her like a piece of clay. As these frightening movements continue, a shot of the real deer is shown again. This time, however, she's laying on the ground, strangely at peace. The shot goes on for approximately 2 minutes, still showing the grotesque gestures of the reflection, which is slowly starting to darken. The deer laying down then starts to excrete a black fluid from under her tail, suggesting a birth to occur. The tar-like substance continues to seep out from her, onto the ground. After this point, many people stop to report the video. Some accounts vary, but many describe a scene where a stillborn human child comes out of the lying deer, covered in something like tar. Some have claimed it's some made-up hybrid between human and animal the artist sewed together or did in post-production. After a close-up of the hybrid's face is shown, the mirror is shown to be broken, within an empty field. Black and white stock footage of a crowd applauding is shown in slow motion, and then the film ends with about 5 minutes of blackness and mumbles/murmurs slowly fading in volume. Many people say the video can no longer be found online, whilst others say that the audio goes around file-sharing programs like SoulSeek and BitTorrent. Some even say they have attained the video itself through such means. Screenshots of it unknowingly pop up on image boards and sites such as Tumblr, but the video itself has been hardly seen outside of its initial debut. A year later, the artist posted another YouTube video, but this time it was just 5 minutes of a black screen and silence. However, the description contained a link to a webcam site. Viewers describe only seeing a couple of dangling, pale feet slightly rotating above a knocked-over chair.
A Difchil is a parasite. A microscopic abomination that enters your body usually through your tear ducts or debris from your eyelashes. It'll work its way around your eyeball to your retina and latch on. Using its tendrils, it siphons information from your brain. It recognizes the different impulses buzzing within your consciousness. It will know everything you wish to be, everything you hate, and everything you are afraid of. First, it blocks out the positive impulses, making you seem more disillusioned than usual. You may feel a little tired and drained, but you'd probably just dismiss it. Maybe take a few painkillers. You've had that headache for a while now. You start having thoughts you never thought you'd have. You'd never think you'd ever want to see your own father strung from his intestines from a door frame. Sure, you've had your differences, but you've never wanted to hurt him. But you've just thought about it. You saw it in your mind. And you liked it. The parasite amplifies your fears and projects them into everyday life. Say you hated the sight of spiders. You wake up one morning to find one on your pillow, in your favorite coffee mug, crawling along your girlfriend's face as you move in to kiss her. Yet when you swipe to get it off, it's like it never was there. You smack your girlfriend in the face to get it off, and it felt good to get rid of it. Because you hate spiders, right? Soon, the parasite will manipulate you to destroy the things and people you most love, because it knows it can make you without you even knowing it's controlling you. To others you've become cruel, bitter, and twisted. Alone. A murderer? Since when? There's a reason why people tell you not to rub your eyes, you know.
There are no fish in Mirror Lake. They all died and washed up on its shores. The people in town won't believe me, but I saw them flood the beach. Their bodies were rounded up and eaten by the creatures in the woods. The few bones that were left were buried in the sand, but no one will come see them. The fishermen lost interest in the lake long ago. No one comes to Mirror Lake anymore except for us lonely few who live on its edge. The others that live on its shore say that the fish are still alive. But I know the truth. There are no fish in Mirror Lake. There is no life in Mirror Lake. Every ounce of living flesh tried to escape, the fish and the toads, the bottom dwellers, and the reptilian, everything that once tried to survive in Mirror Lake has failed. Now all that stays is the cold dead plants and the rotting bodies of the deceased. If you speak to the others around the lake, they will tell you that the lake is filled with life. They say that the fish and toads are all around, that the bottom dwellers and reptilians are only hiding. But I know the truth. There is no life in Mirror Lake. There are no waves on Mirror Lake. Its water stays still through violent wind and pouring rain. A pebble can stir no ripples on its surface. A boulder would only sink calmly into its murky depths. The people believe that its surface moves, the others on its edge say it moves as much as ever. But I have watched the water, and I know the truth. There are no waves on Mirror Lake. There are no reflections on Mirror Lake. There is only the opaque pitch on its surface. Your image will not show on Mirror Lake if you look from above. The many trees and few houses are not displayed on its still water. The people in the town do not dare look at the murky water in Mirror Lake, and the others that live on its edge say that they see the reflections on its surface fine. But I have stared into Mirror Lake for hours, and I know the truth. There are no reflections on Mirror Lake. Mirror Lake is dead. Its water is deep and unmoving. Its life has all dried up. There is nothing left in Mirror Lake, but I still do not dare look out my window at it at night, for I might see something that stirs its water. I do not wish to see the thing that moves in Mirror Lake, because I know, there are no fish in Mirror Lake.
Especially ones like the Ed and Eddie Theory one, or the Courage one. Yup. If you're reading this, then I am hopefully long gone. It's been 2 months now since the meteor struck Mississippi. There was a lot of public interest in it, astrologers and the like all gathering around for a look. They took samples of the rock and shipped them all over the world to museums in every country. Hell, I almost made a trip to have a look myself, but I had an interview with a potential employer. If he hadn't called me up the previous day, I'd be dead now. 3 days later, after the initial hype died down, the news reported nothing on the meteor for a couple of days. The next thing I heard about it was when I got home from the pub and turned on the late night news. I was just in time to catch a breaking news article. The worried-looking reporter informed me that almost everyone who had been in the vicinity of Mississippi when the meteor went down had been hospitalized. Their symptoms were similar to those that a corpse experiences during decomposition. 10 people had already died, mostly the elderly and the very young. Scientists and geneticists from all over the globe were working frantically to try and find a cure. Being smarter than the average bear, I gathered some supplies and prepared for an epidemic. Years of being paranoid beyond reason was finally about to pay off. The news the next day had a lighter tone. A Chinese scientist had worked out that the meteor had contained an alien strain of bacteria that slowly broke down flesh tissue. The scientist also remarked that the bacteria were only affecting humans. He had also worked out that if a victim consumed a living being, such as an insect, it would delay the progression of the bacteria, giving the scientists more time to figure out a permanent cure. Anyone who thought they may have contracted the infection was to eat as many live creatures as they could. The reporter also explained that the U.S. Army was attempting to contain the infection. They failed. Anyone who has read Stephen King's book, The Stand, will have an idea of how the bacteria made its way around the world. It passed through the air, but to catch it, you had to be near someone infected. Because the symptoms took between 3 to 5 days to kick in, people didn't realize that they were infected. In a week, Victus disease, as it had been named, was global. I had barricaded myself in my house, with towels and blankets stuffed into every crack. I had the TV tuned to the news all day and night. The scientists had not predicted that the bacteria would adapt to the infected people's efforts at trying to keep it at bay. Victims all over the world were claiming that the insects were no longer working. People were starting to catch small mammals and eat them. As the days went by, people were slowly eating larger and larger animals. The first reported case of cannibalism was, ironically, the last broadcast made. The anchorman's hair was falling out and he was missing 3 teeth. He nervously told America that there had been a reported case of cannibalism in Southern Europe. He also said that there would be no further broadcasts. All survivors were to lock themselves in their house and not let anyone in. For the next week and a half, I watched the infected shamble up the street, knocking on doors. One of my neighbors, a couple of houses down from me, was stupid enough to open the door. 3 people dragged him out and started biting his flesh. They started with his arms and legs, trying to keep him alive for as long as possible. They were crying as they ate. Their meal was shrieking in pain, and the 3 people eating him were apologizing furiously through mouthfuls of his arm. I don't think they were unable to control themselves, it looked more like they were disgusted by what they had to do to stay alive. They tried to break into my house 5 or 6 days later, but my barricades held. They were outside, begging me to let them in. Just 1 bite. Please, be generous. I listened to their pleading all night, too scared to sleep. I suppose I should explain why I'm writing this. I'm infected. Yesterday I coughed and lost a canine. I spent the night pulling out my teeth, easing them out one by one. It didn't hurt, they just slid out, like pulling up carrots. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm infected. The bugs have stopped working, and all the wild animals have long since run away. I have decided to lure someone into my house and attack them. It sounds so wrong writing that out, but I don't want to die. And I'm so hungry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Back then the child did not understand a thing. He was dirty, restless and aching. His face was covered with soot. Ever since the bright flash, he hadn't been allowed to leave the house, and it always seemed to be nighttime outside. He couldn't see much out the windows, anyway. Too much smoke and ash, like a black snow day. Nobody came to visit. It was just Mom, Dad and him, and his grandpa and grandma. And now Grandpa and Grandma were gone. His tummy groaned once more and he tugged at his mother's shirt, who looked about as dirty and tired and restless as he did. He asked her for some of what she was eating, but she sweetly denied him, said this was food for grown-ups, and she'd get him something to eat soon enough. This was another of so many things that the boy did not understand. He pouted, turned, and left, to find something that may distract him. Mom looked a little sad. The boy wandered around the empty house, the locked windows and doors and the dreary corridors. There was no power, so he couldn't watch TV or play video games. He was tired of his action figures and board games. A sudden whiff caught his attention. He stopped and veered back towards the shut basement door, a place where he did not dare venture, for the basement was sure to hold monsters or at least rats. But there was a weird smell coming out of there today. It was the most interesting thing to happen in months since the flash, so he pushed the door once, twice, and the swollen wood yielded with a slow creak. The stench was overwhelming inside. The boy covered his nose and reconsidered, but decided he wanted to get to the bottom of this, slowly descending the concrete steps, hollow sounds marking them. He heard sounds down there, like some shuffling, something muffled. It was too dark. Fear gripped his heart, but by now he was transfixed. He groped the wall for the light switch, then suddenly remembered there was no electricity. Fortunately, in this time he had been taught to use candles and lighters effectively. He found such instruments resting upon a nearby table, and lit the candle, casting a small aura of light around him. He gazed at the table. It was covered in shears and blades. Turned towards the sound of the noise, he was suddenly taken aback, and froze in place. It was Granny, leaning against the back wall. She was naked. Where her legs used to be only cauterized stumps remained. She gazed at him so sweetly, but he was barely registering the situation. It was too much for him. She smiled in resignation. "Run. You're next."
So this happened to me about 4.5 months ago. I've been in the Army National Guard for 4 years as a military policeman. The unit I'm in coordinates the support and maneuver elements, transport, engineers, MPs, signal, etc., for my state. Over this past summer we were involved in a nearly 2-month simulation called a Warfighter. It is a war game that is predominantly done using simulation software and is interconnected. We were working with the Air Force and other states. The area we were operating in was Fort Indy in Town Gap, Pennsylvania. The barracks there aren't the best. They date back to the 1940s for some of them. The lockers were all from the 60s. Anyway, we were doing day/night shifts. Even though I was on the day shift, I was in the night shift barracks. I was the only one from day shift. How the barracks are situated is, they had about 20 rows of 2 bunk beds, all off to the sides while there was a long aisle down the middle. As below, so was the second floor. Anyway, I got back to the barracks at around 1830 and, even though I was tired, went up to the USO to grab some snacks. When I got back, it was properly dark out, and when I entered the barracks, it was frigid, even though it was humid and hot outside. I turned on the lights and got ready for sleep. I slept pretty comfy and warm until about 0230 when the sound of running on the second floor woke me up. Again, I'm the only one sleeping in this barracks during the night. I got up out of bed, and I can clearly see my breath. It is that cold in the building. The running, and I mean sprinting, was loud and distinct, and seemingly constant as if the source was running in circles all around the floor. Wanting to know who it was, I proceeded to the stairs. I'm a sergeant, so I know if there is a private or specialist, he's about to get messed up for waking me. To be continued. Pic related are the barracks. When I got to the stairs, I yelled up for whoever it was to stop and get their ass downstairs. Instead of stopping, the feet just kept pattering away, running. By the sound, it sounded like they were running barefoot, just to the edge of the stairs out of my sight. The only light was the red exit light behind me shining up the stairs. Getting a bit pissed off now, I whipped up the stairs and turned. No sound, no lousy private, nothing was there. I then considered it could have been an animal and my brain just figured it for a human. I turned on the light and did a brief walk through. When I got back to the stairs, I heard a new sound. The showers were going. At this point, I figure I'm being screwed. The other day shift clowns probably got in, and the running culprit was hiding in a locker or something. I got into the bathroom faster than the flash and found nothing. The light wasn't even on. It took me a second just to find which shower it was that was turned on. I yell out for them to stop this shit because I only have a couple more hours left of sleep. After this, I just decided to get back to sleep. Not even a minute into my attempt, I heard 3 loud jumps, as if someone was jumping right above my bunk upstairs. I know I yelled something pretty loud and it stopped. I heard nothing else until the night shift came back. This wasn't the last of the strange disturbances in that building, but definitely the most spooky in retrospect. Sorry for not green texting. I hate writing like that.
In the 14th century, in the town of Harnburg, there was said to be a man named Simon whom came across a teacher of great wisdom in the wilderness. Under his tutelage, Simon became learned in the most astounding ways and was soon known far and wide as a worker of miracles and wonders. The Bishop of Selbus, curious as to whom the mysterious scholar may be, asked Simon to take him to meet with his mysterious master. He was informed by Simon that he had never met with the master, but in a dark cave in the wilderness. What's more, he had never seen more of his teacher than his white face in the darkness there. The bishop contrived to have Simon take him and a party of companions to this place. As told, there was a cave in the wilderness, and therein was the master, hidden from their sight, but for his pale face in the gloom. The scholar conversed with the group, and spoke of things that amazed and confounded them. By and by, the bishop made a secret signal to his followers as arranged beforehand. Ignoring the cries of the student Simon, the white-faced man was seized and dragged out into the daylight. There was found to their great horror that only his head was that of a man, the rest of his body being not unlike a long grey worm, as thick as a man's waist and several yards in length. They beat his writhing form to death with clubs and stones, and buried the broken remains in the cave. Of what befell Simon there is no record. To this day the citizens of Hamburg know the nearby cave as Atrox Vermis, the terrible worm. From Geschichte und Legenden 1621.
I have had exactly one weird thing happen to me with photographs. Not to me directly, but in college they did a photography course, which I wasn't on, but I knew a few of the people. One was a girl whose name escapes me, but I think it begins with K. I'll call her Kate. Solid 7 out of 10, bohemian type, typical college girl. We talked about marble hornets for a while one day, crap was so cash. Anyway, we'd often chat for a few minutes in classes. College was pretty lax, but also pretty stuff, and one time she was looking through photos of a ruined castle. I'm in Ireland, there's 24 ruined churches and castles per square inch of land, out in Tipperary, the Rock of Dunamace. It's a striking ruin, all these crumbled walls sitting on a hilltop. Only there's something in every picture of the ruin itself, though not the surrounding hills. Some guy, some tourist, or something messed around. She's an avid believer in not photoshopping her pictures, and she gives out about it. We laugh. The end. A week later, in between classes, I find her looking through new photos. I ask her if it went okay. Kate says he's still there. Not only that, but he isn't just standing in the background, he's crouched on rocks, he's climbing, he's running, and he's closer, too, but not enough to make out any features. I mention Slenderman because I'm just so funny, and she laughs back going, I freaking hope not. She says the place is too far for her, but it'll get her a good grade. Cut to 3 weeks later and Kate comes back. I haven't seen her in a while. I've heard tutors asking if anyone knew where she was. She comes in, hair tied back. I've never seen her tie her hair back, and totally different clothes. She smiles and laughs, but when she isn't talking she's staring into nothing. I come over about 2 days after she's back and ask how everything is. She mumbles not in the photo before jerking her head away and answering with a bright, smiley hey.
Just wrote some OC for you. Rate, advice, etc. As a child, I was average. I was very happy with life, very social, all the things a child should be. It all began to change when I was 12. Life started to get hard, what with the pressures of middle school, and now everyone wants a girlfriend, wants to dress nice, wants to be popular. I did not. I was an introvert who focused on knowledge. I was happy with books. I like to know, or at least used to. When I was 15, I started to hate life. Seriously debated self-end. Tried it once or twice, but failed like the pathetic waste I knew I was. Near the end of fall, everything changed though. While walking down the road at night, insomnia, I met an immortal man. I knew he was immortal because he was physically young but had the demeanor of someone from many years ago. He dressed almost like the people of the 1930s. He spoke as if he had some experience too, and here's what he said. Nice to meet you, young man. It's late at night to be wandering, isn't it? Not my place to punish you though, I too wander this barren road in solemn silence. Now, to the reason why I'm here. Your parents are devout Christians, true? They may have talked to you about me, portrayed me as some kind of flaming, evil monster with horn, a serpent tongue and a pitchfork. Called me, the devil, from that old book? Yes, young man, I am the manifest form of evil you've been told of. I've come to you with great offers. You may become immortal, at a cost. You may have riches, at a cost. Anything you want, but it will cost you. I asked to know. Very well. You'll have infinite knowledge, but I can't let you tell anyone. That's the price. I said yes. I never really talked, was ignored when I did. Years later, I'm trapped in this mental hospital with so much to say and no way to get it through. They think that I'm crazy because of the frantic concern on my face. Little do they know what I know. Thank you, Satan, for this. It's a gift, and a curse.
The Penspike Bubble. The history books and records for the town of Penspike spoke of an old wasteland, just beyond the last house, where, if the time is right, and the person is right, time itself would unravel and reveal secrets of the past and future. The place was known as the Penspike Bubble. I came across this legend one day whilst searching for some history on the town's church. The record book of 1865 told of a heinous demon who was banished to the wasteland by the townsfolk. It told of how the creature was trapped there, and will remain there until the end of time. Intrigued, I read up on the history of this wasteland and, sure enough, there were stories to be found of a devil or demon who could disrupt time, residing in the wasteland. I decided I would pay a visit to this place, and 2 days later I departed from my familiar surroundings to venture into the countryside, in search of the Penspike Bubble. Upon arrival, I avoided the locals and headed away from the town, consulting an old map. The map led me into a small wood, and, navigating by eye, I came across a circular wasteland among the trees. The lush greens of the English countryside seemed to cower at the edge of the wasteland, for nothing grew here. A breeze rushed through the trees as I contemplated stepping into the wasteland, and soon, not one to be spooked by a dead spot, I moved out of the grass and into the circle. Upon entering the wasteland, everything changed. The wind died down and the pleasant, cheerful wood which I had just exited seemed dark and menacing. Much to my own alarm, I became aware of somebody standing behind me. I whirled around, stepping quickly away from the man. His face was horrifying, the flesh blackened and ragged. He had clearly sustained major burns. He did not speak, and, allowing fear to overcome me, I ran out of the wasteland and back to my car. My life continued normally after my visit to the wasteland, and I had pretty much forgot my experience, allowing life to whisk me along in its ever-moving stream. Last year, however, after an accident with an exploding gas canister, I learned the truth about the man in the clearing. It was me.
Some fresh OC. Be gentle, it's my first time. I met her on the banks of the river. She startled me, actually. Hi. What are you doing out here all by yourself? She was so straightforward. Almost nosy, but in a cute way. I made sure to hide the stains on my shirt and fingers. *1, was just. Don't I know you from somewhere? I tried to smile. I lied to her. Maybe so. She smiled back. And I knew, right then, that I was going to give in. It didn't take long after that. We were seeing each other almost every day. I was starting to fall for her. Our dates were progressively getting later into the night. And I was terrified. Finally, one night after a movie, she asked to come to my place. My heart sank deep into my stomach. I couldn't tell her no. I didn't want to hurt her, but I knew I would. She came inside, and things started moving pretty quickly. I wasn't surprised. I knew she had been getting impatient. But I didn't care. She was incredible. We quickly found our way to my bedroom. Just as quickly, she fell asleep. As I looked at her, I was able to forget my fears and fall asleep. I dreamt of her. I woke up facing away from her. I rolled over to find her looking at me. Her eyes were wide, mouth open. I was confused until I noticed the blood. It soaked the pillow and the sheets around her throat. I closed my eyes again, sobbed. I sat up and noticed the blood-crusted knife in my hand. I dropped it on the floor. I knew I would hurt her, I thought. I always knew. I remembered to change my shirt before dumping her at the river this time.
The planet. Daylight lasted 42 times longer on this planet than on Earth, so we took out time as we delved deeper into the ancient ruins. Before leaving the ship and venturing out into the unknown, a scan had revealed the ruins to be at least 5 million years old. The chances of encountering alien life forms were extremely low. The pilot stayed on the ship, along with the mechanic, so it was just the 3 archaeologists, and me, the 4th, out on the surface. The ruins stretched out for miles across the otherwise barren landscape, and the scale of the buildings was huge. Whatever beings had previously occupied this place had been gigantic, dwarfing any human. Hours passed and we continued to explore, discovering a variety of rooms and corridors and statues. The place was breathtaking. I had separated from the others and was collecting a sample from a large collection of rocks I had found when I heard a shout. "Adrian! Come quick, we've found something!" I followed the echoes of the shout and soon found the others standing before a great, circular structure, seemingly built into the floor. The structure was bowl-shaped and made of some kind of cracked stone. There seemed to be a pile of something at the flat point in the middle. Eager to investigate, we headed down the slope. I heard a noise, like wind, quietly increasing, as we reached the objects in the middle. The objects were sticky and discolored, and it took us a while to realize they were bones. The others immediately began bagging samples and taking swabs, and then soon came to the conclusion that this place was some sort of an arena. A peculiar feeling of unease settled in my stomach as I strained to hear the wind, steadily increasing in sound and velocity. The others were chatting, excitedly. An arena, this species may have been similar. These bones are smaller, it must be another, like the Romans, making lions fight with. I broke out in a sweat as the wind broke out into a roar. The others noticed too as the floor shuddered slightly. "I think we should move, Adrian, let's go." The others ran for the sides, made sluggish by the rapidly increasing heat. I gazed around in wonder, the wind roaring and the heat scalding. This was no arena, it was a cooking pot.
In a private terminal at the port of Boston there is a houseboat. This houseboat has been anchored there, permanently, for at least 50 years. The eccentric owner has maintained all fees and taxes and is in good standing with the port authority. Still, even if the owner wasn't financially responsible, no one would ask them to depart. Despite the owner's friendly, hospitable, if odd nature, there is a persistent air of unease around the boat and the area of the port surrounding. Very few people have taken the owner up on offers of hospitality, but those who do recount a wholly unbelievable tale. When you step into the houseboat, it's as if you're sent backwards 50 years in time. Looking out windows depicts a cityscape of antiquity, and the television receives live broadcasts of programs of the era, including news programs. If you look out the open door, you see the city as it stands today. When the door closes, you can see the 50-year-old skyline through the port opening. Some visitors who spend time with the owner notice something particularly disturbing, an almost uncanny resemblance to their host, despite obvious age differences. Though this is odd, the owner is friendly and trustworthy, ignoring the air of unease most feel, so it isn't surprising if casual friendships build between a guest and the proprietor. All this would, of course, be very strange and worthy of note, but dismissed as some form of elaborate hoax or illusion, if it weren't for one additional detail. Whenever someone elects to spend the night in this houseboat after an evening of conversation and a few drinks, they are never heard from again. When the guest awakens in the morning, the owner is nowhere to be found, and suddenly, the city skyline never changes back to its contemporary appearance when exiting the boat. Under the bed there is a briefcase full of $100 bills with a letter stapled to a list. The letter simply reads, "You have 50 years to follow these instructions if you wish to free yourself from this hell. The clock is ticking. Get to work. Capture, guards scare you."
You're never the same afterwards. You're different. Changed. I find no comfort in the company of others. I can imagine the disgust on their faces when they hear of my plight. How could they ever understand the torment I live with every day? When it first happened, it was necessity. A matter of life or death. We crashed, in the dead of winter, no hope of rescue. It's truly a horrible, sneaking thing, hunger. At first, you're so worried about the lack of food, that your hypochondriac mind conjures up a horrendous appetite. After you've calmed down, it fades slowly. For the first day, you hardly miss the feeling of fullness. Sadly, it doesn't last. Jonathan looked delicious after day 3. I told the rescuers that he slipped and fell, his skull cracked by sharp rock. I could see in their eyes that they knew better. A truth they could never prove, callous and uncaringly dismissing me as a soon-forgotten newspaper hero. That flavor. The texture. Unseasoned, unsalted, it was the most amazing thing I have ever tasted. If I weren't a smoker, I'd have only known it raw. But for the grace of God, I had a lighter. For a week I feasted on the remains of the man I'd once called a lover, an entire week before the rescue crew found me. The brutal irony is that we may have survived long enough without provisions, without such a selfish loss of life. To the outside world I mourned. The truth was much to the contrary. It was less Jonathan's love I remember, and more so his taste. It's maddening, when you crave something you can never have again. It's one thing for a drink to be discontinued, never to be available again. There's a finality to it. You know that you'll never have the opportunity to relish that flavor again. It's quite another thing to see your delicacy all around you, but be haunted by the taboo of partaking. The world thinks my emotional distance is post-traumatic stress. I simply cannot see other people as anything but meat. Wonderful, delicious meat.
Hot date tonight. I don't know what she sees in me. I am not that fit or handsome or talented. Maybe she likes me for my personality. I kept her laughing and she seemed so interested in all of the stuff I bought up. I thought I would make her depressed talking about how my folks died and my lonely childhood, but she seemed interested in how I got back on my feet after it was all said and done. When I ring the door she opens it, but she is hiding behind the door. When I walk in I turn around to take off my shoes. When I turn to face her, she was wearing nothing but her cute striped panties. Her hair was wet and the bead water and sweat rolling down her body. Sorry about that, I was running late and you kind of caught me in the shower. I will be with you in a minute. Why not have a drink while you wait? I begin drinking the champagne that she had waiting for us. I wake up to her standing over me. She is wearing this almost see-through black dress and nothing else. Poor thing, sorry to keep you waiting. Please, don't worry about it. We sit down and start to eat dinner and something doesn't feel right. I start to feel sick and dizzy, but whatever, it's a hot date. After dinner the feeling are getting worse, but she takes off her dress and lays on me. I have one question, why me? I just feel sorry for you. I can live with that, so is that why you are being so nice to me? No. It's because I want your last moments of life to be happy. I want to ask her what she means when I start to go into shock. I look down at my stomach and pull up my shirt. There is this huge, fresh scar on my stomach. What did you do to me? What is happening to me? She licks the cut and smiles. The adrenaline and painkillers are starting to wear off. I hate that you have to suffer so much. Anyway, thanks for dinner, you were delicious, don't you agree?